Everybody, welcome back to Addiction, Alcoholism, and the Three Principles. My name is Gregsuchy, and I'm back again with Harry Drabitsky. And today we're going to talk about a topic that I believe is one that really just needs to be addressed. It's not, I don't think it's very well understood as far as the Three Principles view of past behaviors and their indicators on future behaviors and stuff like that. But a lot of people are caught up in the idea that just because you've done some not so great things in the past that it means that you're going to do them again. And I don't know, I just felt like this was something we needed to kind of get into, and I wanted to see where Harry was at first before we get into too much here.
Okay. Well, when one of the things when the psychologist came to Salt Spring Island was Sid emphasized to them, of course, about the spirit within, or the health. The word became innate health. That came from the psychology within, and he always talked about that. But he always talked about the danger of going into the past when you're going to help a client. That was really, really taboo. And so in present day psychology, the reason 3P has so much difficulty on one level is our understanding that the past, which is what they're studying, and in your present situations related to that isn't the way to do it. And what happens when you see that is you not only are able to help your client, you're able to not regurgitate the stuff that is bothering the person. So one of the indications that I always have when I'm working with a client is I share something with them and they give me a big smile. But if they go back and start talking about their problem again, I know they didn't get it, because they still are thinking about their problem. And Sid's emphasis was get your mind off your problem and get into feeling a good feeling. And that good feeling, when you look at your problem, looks a lot different. So the past is considered by Sydney Banks as the big taboo. And when we live in our personal lives, you notice when your level goes down, which happens to everybody, we automatically start pulling up all these old thoughts and patterns. And that's one of the things I found fascinating, was that the past doesn't disappear. It's still sitting there, all those thoughts, but we just don't pick them up. We don't pull them out into the present. And that really surprised me, because the two things people are always saying: I want to get rid of my past, and I want to stop this mind, this petty personal mind, from controlling me. And yet that is impossible. Like, it can't stop that. And the past will always be there. But what happens is, as your level of understanding goes up, you're not interested in it anymore. You just it's a boring topic. And quite often, and I think Greg will agree with me, when you're drinking too much or something, you're already free of the past, but you've got a past pattern, so you just sort of step into it automatically. And if that happens to you, Greg has always been, forget about it, let it go, just move on, get up off the floor and go on and do it again. I don't mean do the drink again. I mean just
get back to life.
A few more. Yeah, So that's just a little preliminary of the past is actually, with the three principles, something that we never get rid of, but and comes to the surface from time to time. And it either triggers us into releasing in the same old bad habit way, or we see it for what it is. And the moment we see it for what it is, no matter what that is, we're already on the road to recovery. We're already heading in the right way. And then Sid always said, and then you do nothing, which always is rather a confusing statement, except it's true. So that's my little preamble in this scenario. Maybe we could go around, Greg, and ask each of them just what they see with the past and so on. Anyone want to raise their hand first? Go ahead, Judy, you start. Oh, Thomas, this guy is right into it. All right.
But the way I saw it when I actually I saw it for myself, that I just made it up. I didn't see the difference between actually having thoughts and I was the thinker. So when I saw that actually someone is listening to all that bullshit as well, it started to happen things. And I don't know, I followed it. It was a nice thread to pull, and it keeps on like evolving. It seems endless. And cool things appeared, and I didn't want to take a chance to escape in with different substitutes for the real thing. That was to be like aware of. Sort of sounds boring, but it is what it is. It's more like that. More see things for what they are instead of from my perspective. The sort of yapping little monkey in the head telling me what to think about things. I saw the thoughts like, wow, where did those come from? And all of a sudden, from deeper understanding, I saw that they were only thoughts. They were just as scary as I made them. And that was really cool.
You bring up
really see that I made it up and became scared of what I made up. That sounds so stupid now, but it was actually very real. Made me resilient in some way to actually dare to experience what I was experiencing, whatever it was.
And what you just said brought something, it reminded me of something. When we were kids and we'd wake up in the middle of the night and we'd see some weird shaped shadow in the corner of our room, we'd make up a story about it. It's a monster, it's a bad person, it's a whatever, and we become scared. And our parents would come in and they'd turn the light on and they'd show us that it was just some clothes on a chair or whatever it was. And it would take all that fear away. So this, opening that veil in front of us and seeing what's really going on breaks that. It's like that turning on of the light. But here's the thing, we can turn the light back off. We can slip back into it. Like Harry said earlier, we're all, prone to at times falling for the story again. It's just part of that human experience that we're going through. The human experience is in the forgetting. It's the remembering is the spiritual experience, remembering who we are and what's really going on. And Harry brought up, the past, it's always there. But what I've noticed is that when I am at, higher levels spiritually, the past is dynamic, it's changing. And I'm remembering different things, and suddenly there were happier times than what I remembered before, or something was different. And when I'm slipping back down and when I'm falling for the story again, I've noticed that my past becomes very restricted. And it becomes just about the things that I don't like. And I just remember all the times that I'd been hurt and all the times that people, did things bad to me and stuff like that. Or the bad things I've done, and then I'm hard on myself about it. And then because I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm not feeling well, and I'm going to reach out for something that helps me feel better. whatever form that takes. That's why I say, if you know, if you've gone a while, if your whole goal is I don't ever want to drink again, I don't ever want to smoke a cigarette again, whatever the thing is, and you go back and you have a cigarette again, it doesn't mean it's an addiction. It just means that you fell for the story again for a moment. So having that cigarette or having that drink does not mean you're going to have more. It just means you're having that one. It's the story that we create on top of it. The shadow in the corner. I just had that drink. Now there's a shadow in the corner. What does it mean? Well, I could look at it as an adult and say, well, you know, it's probably just some, you know, object in the corner where the shadow is making it look different. Or we can look at it as a child and we can become
that's so
scared.
cool.
And that's
Because
always something that we can experience.
Yeah. It's such a difference to forget who you are and then remember it back again, because I am never scared. I am just happening. Like, so I just forgot. I can get back on. Yeah, it's really cool.
I think there is a connection between fear and the past, and then the effect of the fear when you regurgitate the past. The past is what I notice with a lot of people, especially if they're drinking, is guilt. They feel they don't want to, they do, and then they feel guilty. So fear, insecurity, guilt are all connected together with a past story. The story is actually the tip of the iceberg. What's really underneath it is your insecurity about this when your level slips down, is what Greg was talking about. We all experience that. And so the past becomes more powerful, or the narrowness of the past, to use Greg's image, because he's right. When you're feeling good, the past is there, but they're really mostly, thank you, what beautiful, wonderful. Oh, I remember that good time. They go down, it becomes, I like that image, Greg. Things narrow down to specifics, like the tip of the iceberg type of thing. And that's all we start to concentrate. And I guess that's why we call the world clinical sometimes. They just get very, very clinical to the tip of the iceberg. The beauty of the past is what you brought up, Thomas, is that as our level rises, we can tap into our resiliency. I'm just amazed, you know, look at the world. Bad, 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 bad. Yet the resiliency of humanity is unbelievable. People rise above their past. And so what we're looking for is two things: the explanation of what that means to us and our minds, and the power of rising above it. And after that, it's a lot of fun. It's so interesting what Greg said. As I seen the level go up, and Judy alluded to this, it seems like this happens, but you go, oh, so what? Can you say something, Judy, with that big smile of yours?
I was actually thinking of something I read the other day. It was just a wee quote by Robert Holden, and it was something like, in order to be happy now, you have to give up all hope of having a better past. And it kind of resonated for me because, you know, obviously we can't change the past. We can go back and clean up messes that we made, but we can't change anything. So what's the point in feeling bad about it? It's only going to make us more likely to do something not so good now. So as much as possible, let go of whatever we've done in the past. And yeah, when you start to understand this, it becomes so much easier. It doesn't mean those thoughts aren't going to pop up. And I think you've both everybody has spoken to that so beautifully today. but you can have those thoughts without them having you, as Linda Pransky would say. Like, it doesn't have to determine how you're going to
So how do
handle things.
how do you see that process, Judy? Like, can you explain to other people how you see, you have this thought come into your consciousness? Yuck. Go ahead.
Something someone else said recently that was really impactful for me was that she used to think the information was in the thought, but now she sees the information's in the feeling. So if I'm having a thought that comes with a really powerful, intense feeling, to me nowadays, that's a sign I need to take that one lightly and not, whereas in the past, I just had it completely backward. If a thought came with a really powerful, intense feeling, I thought that made it really important. And now I see that, it's not. And I have to admit, I struggle somewhat sometimes because it's kind of like it feels like I have to almost do the opposite to what I think I want to do sometimes. But, and that feels like hard work because I've got to remember to do the opposite, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to emphasize something to you. What I think you're talking about is in the past, when the past thoughts came, it was like hard work not to, we were following the book and the theory and sort of understood it. But as our level of consciousness rises, what happens is we intuitively slip away from it. It's actually not work at all. It's actually kind of like fun, because like, I don't think, oh, lousy feeling, must be my thoughts, that. That's the theory of 3P. I just have noticed that I not only take him less seriously, but it's very easy to navigate most times. I'm not in perfection, but most times it's just very easy to navigate away. And if I happen to step in the poop a little bit, it doesn't seem to bother me because I just slip away from that. I just intuitively slip away from it. And obviously the opposite of unhappy, if you're not unhappy, what are you? You're happy. If you're not upset, what are you? Well, you're calm. It just becomes, I guess you call it, this is what Sid means by it's a working science. Intuitively, and if once we start to do it, we naturally recover. We naturally are more mentally healthy. And his definition, which I love, your happiness and contentment. That's a natural byproduct of being in equilibrium. Well, Mr. Mike, we've been waiting patiently for you.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm pretty new to the principles, to be fair.
Better. Lucky. You missed all the crap. Okay.
I've been clean and sober a long time, but this is something that a friend of mine introduced me to about 10 years ago, but I've only really taken up the last month, really, to be honest with you. So I'm sucking in as much as I can get, to be honest with you, because it makes so much sense to me. It's like, I actually said to him, I said, this has been the missing link in my sobriety. And he said, well, Sydney Banks wrote a book called The Missing Link, which I didn't actually know about, but it really has been, because, I mean, even though I've been clean and sober a long time, I think 38 years now, but I still I'm still kind of stuck in that spot that when I came into sobriety, I've hunted and I've looked and I've learned meditation. I've done 2 shamanic apprenticeships. I've done all these things trying to find anything. And really, I haven't had to do anything when I'm listening to you people. You know, I'm just there. It's inside. And I know that all the great philosophers say it's inside, but I just didn't know how to go inside. And listening to people like you, I'm still not quite sure, to be honest with you, but I know that it's attainable. I don't know if I'm actually making sense here.
Total sense. Total.
Everybody.
Yeah, definitely. It's the process of getting there. If there is a getting there, there's no there to get to, but the process is more of a forgetting. There's nothing to learn. You're not trying to get to somewhere. You're just not, you're already inside. You're distracted from the inside by all of these things going on outside. That's really what's going on. That's what meditation is supposed to help teach people, is to get away from that outside stuff, and then all that's left is the inside. So
Yeah, it's sort of turned everything that I've learned up to 64-year-old on its head.
yeah, you're already
absolutely.
there. You're already in the state of meditation. It's just that you've forgotten it.
Wow.
And that's the story of humanity. People have forgotten that we're already there. We already have world peace. We've just forgotten it. And so we think that we have to keep having wars and we have to keep fighting over stuff. You know, we think that if we put down our guns, they won't put down theirs. You know, there's that mentality going on, when the fact of the matter is none of us need the guns because we're already happy and whole. We're just distracted from it. We've taken ourselves away from it, and it's letting go of that story that we've created. It's seeing past the distraction. That's what the answer is. That's what Sid was talking about with doing nothing. It's about getting out of this stuff.
And feeling who you are. And you are feeling that. And that's the proof to you. That's why it's a working science. That feeling that you have. See, it jumps time. You say, oh, I haven't done enough of the 3P or whatever you're saying. In reality, it's nothing to do with it. It's just simply your level of realization. All the rest of the stuff was prep to get you to the point where you were ready to acknowledge the truth, that it's within you. You stated that. I can't believe it's so easy. And, you know, all this other stuff, what I was doing. And it seems like the other stuff is talking a lot about ego thought, and this is talking more about spiritual thought. And I don't understand it. Well, I welcome to the club, Mr. Mike. I don't, if you want me to tell you that I understand the 3 principles, the only thing I understand is sometimes I'm in where I understand them, but most of the time I wouldn't be so brave as to honestly tell you, except something I regurgitate in my mind. See, anything you regurgitate there, that's not it. Well, that alone is freedom. And you've uncovered that. Here's all you have to do now. Just keep going into that feeling. And the rest just opens up. And the magic, you have to remember, Sydney Banks was a very, very ordinary guy. And even when he was enlightened, even though everyone talks about that super conscious state, he was just an ordinary guy who happened to have this magical experience. And then he said, well, I wonder what's going to happen next. And next, he said, oh my God, it's so amazing. But he's just an ordinary guy, like you and me. And that's what we've been trying to, the world is saying, oh, no, you're either a bummed out guy or a superhero. But no, you're just Mike. And guess what? That's where the jewels are. Mike.
Wow. Yeah. I know. I keep saying, my friend that put me. I'm struggling to get my head around this. He says, you can't get your head around it. That totally confuses me, because he says you can't get your head around it. You know. And the reasons that I really looked into it is because of panic attacks and anxiety. Really, fear, to be honest with you. You know, and it is helping. Well,
Yeah.
there's part of me wants to resist that and says it's not. It's too easy. This, you've tried all these things over the years and they haven't worked. So how can doing nothing work? It's mad. It's mad. I'm sorry, but I can't.
Like, picture this, Mike. Let's say that we were all taught growing up that the way that gravity works is with invisible tethers. There's these invisible rubber bands that are holding us down to the earth, and that's why we don't fly away. Then you learn the truth. That would blow your mind, to think that there isn't anything there, invisible or otherwise. There's nothing there actually holding you. It doesn't take time to get this. You already have it. Just like you're already using gravity, whether you call it gravity or understand how it works or not. You could be walking through life thinking it's rubber bands holding you down to the ground. And that's what we've all been doing. We're falling for the thoughts rather than the feelings. The feeling is where it's at. The thoughts can lead us astray. They can take us way out into left field somewhere. And we're all slipping on the poop, Harry. We slip right off it. But that's just what's going on. We've been told something that's incorrect. It's innocent. We weren't told all this stuff because people wanted to hurt us. It's just how people have thought. It's been innocently passed down from generation to generation. We carry fears with us that aren't even ours. They're given to us by our parents and grandparents and friends and you know, other people that we meet in our lives. When they give us warnings, watch out for this, and we trust the person and we care about the person, so we automatically trust what they say, the advice they give us. And how many times we grab onto advice we're given without actually looking into it. And that's how things build up. You end up with this mental story of how things work and how life works. And I've got these invisible rubber bands holding me down to the earth, and isn't it great? And all I need to do is learn how to stretch them farther, and then I can dunk the basketball. But what if there were no rubber bands? What if there was nothing restraining you except you?
And your thoughts.
Except your thinking, your story of you. And all it takes is realizing that that's what's going on. You don't get rid of the story, you change the story. We have to have the story. That's this experience where we live in a world of thought. We're always experiencing the world around us through our thinking. But the question is, what are we going to compare those new thoughts to? We have this past behavior, we have this past story where we're saying, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, over and over again. I haven't had a drink in 30 years, but I'm still an alcoholic. Just like I still have these invisible rubber bands holding me down to the earth. There's a freedom there that most people are missing. And it's already there, and you already have it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to do anything to deserve it. It's given. It is yours. You just have to see that there are no rubber bands.
And once you see that, Mike, consciousness takes over. Like once you understand the situation, A, this is true, this, or B, that is false, whichever one, doesn't really matter. You know you're going to do the right thing. The only thing that's kept you from doing the right thing is you haven't seen clearly. You've been full of these rubber band theories. And when you let them go, you automatically, not you, everybody has common sense built into them. And once you become aware of something is affecting you negatively, you know how to, you're on the lookout for it. and you also know where not to go. So if it shows up, you go, there's that old thought, and you let it go. But you don't think about it. You just, that's what we were talking about with Judy. Intuitively, your consciousness just directs you back to your health. And you don't care to understand it, you just see that it works. And the simpler you see it, this is Sid's big teaching, another one, simpler the better. And I have a sense, Mike, that you have an advantage over a lot of people. You like it simple.
Absolutely.
That's the best advantage you can have. I'm telling you, I'm working with 2 clients in the UK. One of them is always in his head. On the surface, he's what you call check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. And the other guy looks dysfunctional. And the dysfunctional person has got these pearls. He said to me the other day, this is the dysfunctional person, but he sees it simple. And I don't see it. I see him as one of the wisest human beings I have ever talked to. I mean it, one of the wisest. And he said, oh my God, the kingdom of God is within us. That is our true nature. I said, my God, we spent a whole show, 2 shows with Bill Pettit trying to define the true nature of spirit and God and the 3 principles, and he defined it in 1 line, better than we did in 2 shows. That's simple. It doesn't complicate it with a lot of the hooky pooky, whatever that is, you know. But so simpler, easier, the better. When Judy was talking, we were talking about intuitive. There's no work in that. It's just, right, Judy? It just is. You can't explain it to anybody. And here's another thing, Mike. When we come on the show, or say we're going to counsel someone, we don't have any prep. The reason is prep gets in the way. You're not spontaneous in the moment. And in the moment, that's where Sid says everything is. Now, he said now, not in the moment, now. That's where everything is, everything you could possibly want. And I can't describe what now is, but you, Thomas, yeah, everybody who's here has experienced the now.
But as far as sort of your perspective on whatever addiction is to you,
Well, talk to Greg about that. Greg's more the expert.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what your take on it is, but I know it would be quite pretty crazy and irresponsible of me to go and take up where I left off, you know, drinking and doing drugs and that sort of stuff, you know. I don't know where you're coming from on that one.
You mean as far as going back to?
Yeah.
It's a personal journey for each person where they feel called. I personally, I used to have issues with alcohol, and I can have a drink or 2 now and then. I don't drink every day. I don't get drunk, but I'll have, a drink or 2. And
see, I couldn't do that, Greg. I couldn't do that.
And others have said the same.
What if that's the rubber bands? And I'm not saying go out and drink. That is a personal journey for you. If you don't feel comfortable with it, don't do it. That's plain and simple. Don't.
Yeah. No, you've been reading about me in the newspapers.
What I believe addiction is that at some point in our lives, those of us who get into addiction of any kind have feelings that we don't know how to deal with. They're negative feelings. There's something we don't like, and we don't know how to handle it. So we reach out for something that's near us.
Yes.
And it seems it's usually whatever friends we're hanging out with, whatever's available, whether it's drugs or booze or food or sex or gambling or whatever. And we see other people engaged in this act or whatever, and we see them happy, and we associate that drug or that action or that whatever with being happy. And then we get high, we get drunk, and yeah, when you're high and drunk, you kind of forget about what's going on. All those distractions are kind of dropping away, right? And you're actually starting to return closer to your core nature. But the problem is you have negative side effects from those things. So it keeps you from actually reaching your full true nature. So you're kind of kept in this weird limbo where you're not really connected, but you're not really disconnected. And you're kind of just in this weird place. But it's all created by a mental thought pattern. The first time that we picked up a drink to blot out whatever intolerable feeling we had, we started a pattern. Now, if we only ever did it once, it wouldn't be a problem, right? But if we keep having that feeling that we don't like, and we keep reaching for the thing that helped with that feeling, eventually our brains pick up on it. It becomes a subconscious thought pattern. And that's when it starts to look like what we call addiction. Because there seems to be no choice. But the fact of the matter is, if anybody really truly pays attention, like somebody who's currently having issues with alcohol, let's say, we'll stick with just talk about alcohol because it's easy to just talk about with that. So I drink every day. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. I drink every day. I've got this in my head. I'm an alcoholic, whatever. I've got this problem. I'm trying to just blot out life. You know, I'm divorced. I'm whatever. I've got this going on, and I'm just going every day, day after day, day after day, drinking and drinking and drinking. And wow, my brain just went totally blank for a second there. But I had somewhere I was going with that. But it's that was.
But you bring the point up though, Greg, is that most of it is just thought.
But it's the pattern that we've created to it.
A pattern of thought. But most
And
of it, see,
it
we
becomes
interpret-
invisible like those rubber bands. But we've created it. And that's what I was getting to. So if a person who's actively like every day using, okay, if they pay attention to the next time, you know, like let's say I don't drink at work, okay, so I'm going through the day and I'm kind of looking forward to the end of the day because that's when I get to go to the bar and it's happy hour and the drinks are cheap and I can go get drunk and then I can go pass out. So I get the question is, pay attention to when you start feeling better. Is it when work is done and you're on your way to the bar? Is it when you've ordered your first drink? Is it when it's in your hand? Is it when it's at your mouth? Or is it when you actually start feeling the effects from it? And if people really honestly take a look at that, they'll notice that they'll start feeling better as soon as they've made the decision, as soon as they're heading to the bar. The relief has already started happening.
That's the thought.
Right.
The physical.
We're creating the feelings. And yeah, then you go put the alcohol on top of it, and yeah, you've got that evening of not having to think about whatever you were thinking about all day. But then you get the negative side effects from it. And then you get the next day, you didn't deal with any of that stuff. So now you've got that plus that day's baggage. And we're not dealing with stuff, and it keeps bottling up and piling up and piling up. And then we have to drink more to overcome it. But if you see through it, if you see the rubber band theory as being innocently incorrect, there's no more need to be constrained by the rubber bands. You can fly now. With the rubber band theory, you couldn't get in an airplane and fly. It would pull you back out of the airplane. There was a time when people believed, when cars were first invented, people believed that they would go so fast that they couldn't breathe. And we're talking about, 20, 30 miles per hour. We're talking about slow speeds compared to what we do nowadays. And yet that was generally believed to be true. And people honestly feared going fast because they thought they would go faster than the air and couldn't breathe. We look back at that and we think it's ridiculous, but at the time, it made perfect sense to them. Germ theory took over 50 years for doctors to widely accept. The fact that invisible little things, little creatures that we can't see with our eyes are killing people. It's not bad smells. It's these little things that we can take care of just by washing our hands and sanitizing instruments and stuff. But it still took over 50 years for that to become widely accepted in the medical field.
And the question he's asking you is, how much of that is in you? How much of these misguided beliefs are in you? Because when Sid Banks had his experience, he was a smoker. But the moment he had his experience, he ceased to be a smoker. That is within all of us. And what you're experienced with not having taken alcohol and not trusting yourself, which is wisdom. You should know yourself and what you can do. But it also is wisdom to know there's a deeper level than just that, coping with the thought of that. And when you see clear what a thought is, then you'll see what we call real freedom.
I don't fight my addiction. I have no desire to drink.
Yeah, I understand. Of course, we know that.
Yeah.
We know that. That's a fact. That's a fact.
It would be very irresponsible of me to go out and have one, Harry. Like, to be fair,
Yeah, of course. And
that's what I was getting at, Mike. Was that that's what I was getting at, Mike. Is it's an individual journey. There's no desire there, so why would you do it?
No, exactly.
And obviously, if it's something, like heroin and methamphetamine and stuff like that, crystal meth, like, no, don't. There's no safely using that.
No, I've been.
You know what I mean? There's no safely using that stuff. So yeah, definitely, there's no don't think that just there's no comfortable spot to get in where you can just safely use crack.
I've never heard of a social drug addict yet.
Right.
I've heard of a social drinker. I haven't heard of a social drug addict.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I want to tell a story that touched me this week. I was talking to a Valo from Greenland, and she went to teach a bunch of people in the school system, maintenance workers, and this guy, his hair was long, and he just looked at the floor, and at a certain point, she said something, and it triggered an insight in him. And he said, tears started coming down his eyes. And he says, "Oh my God, the past is over." He saw it. The past is over. She saw him 3 months later, and now the guy's got short hair. He looks like dynamite. And he takes all the most difficult maintenance jobs. Before he couldn't hardly do a room without falling apart. And now he's doing all this, the most challenging and most difficult thing. And he's smiling. The past is over. That's all he said. I like that. That's all you need. The past is over. And you don't relive it. And it disappears. And guess what replaces it, Mike? What replaces all of that misery? Not coping, there's no thoughts. There's none of it. And then with none of it, what Greg is alluding to, what Judy's alluding, what Thomas is alluding to, it just is. And I don't know how to explain that better than that. It just is. It just is. And that's where all the goodies is. That's what Sid's pointing to the isness. He's not talking about trying to understand how the form works. You don't want to hang around in that ego thought. That's AA. Don't do that. They don't understand that. They just keep talking about ego thought. Forget about that. You want to find out about formlessness, silence, the wisdom within. That's where all the good, it's a spiritual reality. Oh, that's where all the goodies are. And the rest of it disappears in its importance, except one thing happens in the form. You get better at it. You get better luck. Guess what caused your bad luck? Thinking that what was the elastic was, believing in that was causing the bad luck. Do you like good luck or bad luck? Your choice. The only thing is a working science, Mike. Good luck is guaranteed. And when bad luck happens, guess what? You don't get that upset about it, including being terminally sick, including being whatever, financially, bankrupt, including even being divorced. It's just the form it took. But you, in who you are, is all you need to be. That's pretty simple. You don't need any more than that. I'm a very intelligent guy, but I use my intelligence for the form. I don't actually like it in the spiritual at all. I don't like it complicated. It just.
Well, it doesn't exist in the spiritual world.
That's true.
Intellect is human created. We've made up all of this stuff. We've designed tests to show us that, this molecule is doing this, and we're labeling it things and calling it stuff and making it knowledge. It just is. We're just putting labels on things and calling it something fantastic. It's science. Look at it. It's physics. Look at this. We've explained the universe. Well, you don't need to know physics to experience it, is the thing. The universe is there regardless of the label. So we're already whole. We're already healthy. We're already free from addictive habits, except that we believe otherwise.
And that's all Sid taught psychologically on Salt Spring Island. Greg just gave you the total psychological explanation of Sid Banks. It's just watch your beliefs. That's 100%.
Psychology is no different. The DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, with all the mental illnesses listed in there, the disorders, it's just groupings of symptoms. And many of the symptoms are across many of these diseases listed in there. And sometimes the only difference that between one or the other is one symptom. And these are all symptoms that all of us present on a daily basis. Just not necessarily right, but not necessarily grouped together, or not at a certain level of severity or whatnot. But just because somebody's a little bit worse than somebody else doesn't make them magically sick.
No.
It just means that they're caught up in the story more. And that's what Dr. Bill Pettit, I love his work with mental illness. That's what we're talking about here. Addiction and mental illness, they're thought patterns. And if you change the pattern, you change the symptoms. Symptoms can be good too. You have good symptoms. Sometimes you laugh and you smile and you're happy. That's a good symptom, right? The cause is always the same.
And Sid never taught change patterns. He taught only one thing: change thought.
Which is changing the pattern.
Of course, I'm not suggesting. No, Greg, I wasn't suggesting you were wrong. I'm just suggesting.
Which is why 12-step programs work for a lot of people when they work, is because they're changing their habits. Instead of after work every day going to the bar, instead they're going to a meeting. and they're hanging out with other people who are trying to live life happier. You know, and if they happen to get in with an open-minded group, then yeah, they can definitely really improve their lives and live very happy lives, because they'll find people who are trying different things and experimenting. And Bill Wilson was really big on healthy experimentation. He wanted people to try different ways of recovery to find stuff that worked better, because what he came up with was only a suggestion for helping other people have the experience he had. Just like anything that Sid wrote is him trying to convey his experience to us, but it can't really be put into words. So we look for the feeling. You know, when you're listening to these webinars, you listen to Sid, you read the books and stuff. It's not about the intellectual understanding. It's not about memorizing stuff. It's not about being able to spout off what the three principles are to somebody and define all three of them, even though there's only one, and in all actuality, there's none. It just is. But, you know, as human beings, we have this strong need to put things into boxes and label them. And
Yeah.
that's what keeps taking us off track, because we're separating things. And if people could truly see that everything is one, there is no separation, then it would alleviate all of the problems. Because if there's no separation, then we don't need to fight over borders. We don't need to fight over resources. We could just share, because there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
So if we were all connected and one and felt that connection, we wouldn't feel the need to have, well, there wouldn't be a need for money. Who would need money? You just help each other build houses. You help each other do stuff. Things happen. Before we had that kind of a monetary system, people still built structures. People still built communities. And it was when we got attached to this idea of we need to make a living, things started getting separated. And it started becoming your product is better than your product. Yours is worth more. And then it becomes, well, who has more money can buy the better product. And it just became this whole game, the story that society created. So there's not even just my personal story. I've got society's story. And a bunch of those
Wow.
too, because you have more of a local story, and then you've got your national story, and then a global story, and you've got all these different stories going on that people have created, and they perpetuate through the years. And we just keep dragging the past along with us, thinking it's helpful. Because when we're told growing up things like, well, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Well, yeah, but we're not taught how to learn from history and then leave it behind. We're taught to hold on to it, drag it with us.
We poke at it. We poke at it. And that's what psychology is today. Let's see how much I can poke at the past. And that's why it's so opposite. They're talking about poking, what that's sore. Well, Sid was saying, look at your beauty. Well, if you're looking at your beauty, you're not going to be poking at the sore. And guess what happens to the sore if you don't poke it?
It heals.
Oh, so beautiful. So
on its own.
So beautiful. It's just amazing.
I mean, even in the physical world, we can look at the natural healing process on its own, the natural return to that place of being whole. It's visible all around us, and yet we don't want to believe that it exists on an emotional level and on a spiritual level. We've got these massive fires going on. Do you know what's going to happen immediately after the fires are out? New life. Better life. The fire creates a lot of nutrients for the new life. There's seeds that don't even sprout, that don't even grow until they've been heated up. it's all part of the natural process. And it's when we start trying to fight certain parts of it that we start experiencing a lot of that anxiety.
That's so true. Your anxiety is created because you're fighting the natural process that we're all one. Everything is intermingled. The indigenous say all my relations. Everything is interconnected. We are connected and we're relatives to everything. And our past is intermingled with our present and our future. But if you don't see it like that, anxiety is automatically the result. Because then you start to think about, I want, I need, that's how I define myself. Greg, I have a request today. I asked Greg to tell this story. I think, so he told this story once before and I couldn't remember it, but this is a really great story. And since Greg looks a little like a bear right now, I thought it would be appropriate. That's not why I asked. Go ahead, Greg. Please tell that story.
Well, this story, I believe I heard this from Reed Smith, and I've known him for having a lot of different poop metaphors for the three principles. But this yeah, he's always, I don't know why he came up with all kinds of good ones, but and I don't know that he came up with this one because I think it's an older story, but it was kind of adapted for the principles. And you get the thoughts are just flowing through us, just like a river flowing through. And you don't have to do anything with the flow. The river's going to take care of itself. Sometimes you get extra rain or snow melt and the river overflows and it, causes havoc, and then it returns. And it's always kind of in that same path, but it's always changing a little bit. And it changes so slowly that we don't notice the changes. But meanwhile, there's stuff floating down in the water. And you've got, big logs that get caught up on things and they start collecting more debris and they're collecting stuff. And if we start paying attention to those things, we end up running out into the river and we start trying to take care of stuff. And we start throwing the log around, we start moving stuff and trying to get the river to flow in the way it used to. And we're just fighting against something that's unnecessary because the water is going to flow through no matter what obstacle is put in its path. So just let the water flow. And then you get, farther upstream, there happens to be a bear doing his business in the river. So you've got this poop floating down the river and it comes past your spot. And it's like, how dare it? And so you pick up your bucket and you go run out in the river and you scoop up this poop. And you go take it around to all your friends and family and you show it to them. Oh, look at this poop. Look at this. It came into my life. Isn't this just a bunch of crap? And of course, everybody looks at, oh yeah, that's some real crap there. Yeah, it's terrible. That's terrible. But eventually people get tired of hearing about our crap. And we stop getting the attention for it. So it becomes boring and we dump it out. And then we find the next one floating down the river. We run out, we grab that one. And we go show everybody, look at this crap. And like, oh yeah, that's new crap. But the fact of the matter is all we had to do was let it float by. And we keep doing that with our thoughts. They come into our heads. And I'm guilty of it too. We're all, just having this understanding doesn't completely free you from it. It frees you from the anxiety of it. It frees you from taking it so seriously. It's like, oh, well, that's what it was. All right. And I find myself laughing it off a lot more when I catch myself, running around with my bucket of poop. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm doing that again. But the great thing is now I don't have to run around with that bucket until people are tired of hearing about it. Now I can just get rid of it right away. Like, oh, there's that bucket again. And I can just get rid of the bucket altogether. That's the thing is Sid reached that level where he got rid of the bucket completely, I think, from what I've heard. And he still had his moments of, falling for the story, but he didn't stay in it. That's That's the real key to this whole thing. It's not that we suddenly are free from life. It's not that we don't have, you know, negative feelings anymore and what we call bad emotions or whatever. No, you still have the whole package. It's all one. Remember the oneness thing we were talking about? It's all one. Guess what? Fires are part of it. Having that burn and that regeneration through that process of burning is part of life. When we lose loved ones, we're still going to feel hurt, and we're still going to cry, and we're still going to have to move on. It's getting caught in that and getting stuck in that becomes the problem. It's like the forest fire's there and we're out fanning it and trying to get it bigger. We're trying to keep it.
How did you move from poop to fires? I don't know how. That was a quick transition, Greg.
I was going back to what we were talking about earlier, just tying it back in.
I know.
But the question is, how long do you want to run around with your bucket? And just realizing that that's what's going on is enough to make you go, wait a minute, why am I doing this? And at least you'll dump the bucket at first. You'll still carry the bucket. You know,
that's consciousness. You know, your consciousness takes care of it. You don't do anything. The moment you become conscious, once you have an insight or a realization, or the consciousness just guides you through it. Every enlightened being has taught raise your level of consciousness. They always talk about that. And as you raise your level of consciousness, I guess what Greg is alluding to is you look at the poop less. You may let it go downstream, or you don't pick it up as often. And guess what? You don't even have to think about it. And that's what doing nothing is. You don't have to think about it. It just is a working science, the three principles. It just works. I don't understand. I just see it in my life as proof. If I can't see it, it's not proof. That's all. So of course, at higher levels of consciousness, you have more proof that it's a working science. It works this way. Don't ask me to try and put it into words, because that's when I get lost. Because I'm trying to help you, but actually what it is I'm confusing you. You pick up on the feeling of a kid, the love of a kid, much easier than the love of an adult, most times. They're not trying to explain anything to you. Yeah, that's where the answer lies. So maybe we could hear, Thomas, could you conclude? And you, Judy, and then we could call her Mr. Thomas. Just
Mr. Thomas is just sitting here in a nice feeling, and yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
That's the key.
Thank you for the show. Thank you, Greg.
Welcome.
And Harry, and all the other.
Yeah, Judy.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, oh, thanks, Thomas. That's very touching. I really love that. Perfect.
I don't really have anything to add, but it was really interesting to hear some different analogies that I certainly haven't heard before. Thank you, Greg.
That's the purpose of the show, is we're trying to present it in a unique, fresh manner, not just the staid way. And would you both agree that Mike being on the show definitely had a big positive? That's honestly, Mike, you were the key to the whole show. Just by showing up.
The truth of the matter is, Mike, you're closer to the truth than a lot of people who've been in the three principles a lot longer, because you haven't added the story about the principles. You're just experiencing what is. And that's the true key. Just go with that feeling. You know what the gut feeling is. We talk about it. You know, we've heard that time and time again. Trust your gut, trust your gut, trust your gut. Most of us don't even listen to it. It tells us when we're off track. Got a built-in compass, just got to use it. But thank you, everybody. This has been a really, really awesome session here. Really good discussion, and
Yeah, very
looking
good.
looking forward to another couple weeks when we. Who's our next guest?
I'm actually working with, I got someone in mind actually that I may bring on next time, depending on how our talk goes. So I've got something percolating in there. But on the 15th, right now, we have Joe and Amy and Barb talking about the conference as well. So, but I'll announce something
Awesome.
quite soon. I'm just percolating it through my head and just checking out that it will be a show that I think will value, type of thing. And thank you. That was a really fun topic. By the way, just for your information, that topic came from Greg. He picked it. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Harry.
He thought people who were addicted would want to hear about this topic. And it turned out he was right.
Yeah, I think it's an important one.
You
So
bet.
thanks everybody for participating. That's really what makes this what it is. It's about all of us. So thank you all, love you all, and we'll see you next time.